I'm excited to share this conversation with you today. Today, I'm digging into brand and much, much more with Rafael Sanguily. So, if you are not familiar with Rafael or you don't know him yet, you absolutely should. He is the Vice President of Strategic Alliances at Glass Hive. That name may sound new to you. Stay tuned to sort out what Glass Hive is. But Rafael's been in this space for 10 plus years. He was with companies such as Intel and Storagecraft and Ingram. He had a company ages ago called the MSP University. So he's always been in the channel from an angle of helping businesses grow, helping MSPs to have the solutions that they need to grow. So today we're going to talk about branding. We're going to talk about building businesses. We're going to talk about the evolution of Rafael's business that he started with his brother that went from a marketing agency, Try Digital, to a CRM company, Honey, to now what is Glass Hive. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoy it. Rafael, it is great to connect with you. I'm glad we're getting a chance to catch up today. How are you?
Good, Andra. How are you doing? Thank you for having me on again.
You are welcome. I'm doing great. And
Long time no talk.
I know, right? I feel like
Yeah.
we catch up all the time now, which is great.
Yes.
It's always fun. And I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today, because this is something that I know that you and I are in constant conversations about, whether it's vendors or MSPs. And what I'm talking about is brand. So constantly we're asked about brand, when to brand, how to brand, what is a brand, on and on. And so we're going to answer some of that for you today as you tune in. But I want to start off with some exciting news. So I know you have some branding news. So bring us all up to speed. What is happening on your front?
Yes. Speaking of branding, and I'm not talking about this Dolphins logo on my hat here, but it's actually Honey CRM is now turning into Glass Hive. And a lot of people, I got mixed reactions because a little bit of shock, and some people love the Honey brand. They really like everything about it. The good news is a lot of that same, we'll get into like what makes a brand, right? The personality, the intangible stuff that goes in, that made it go in to make Honey kind of the brand that it is, and the colorful and cool things that it is. A lot of that's transitional. That's not going to change. For us, the actual nomenclature, Honey CRM, the CRM portion, just ended up being a little limiting because we're doing a lot more than CRM now. Our software is it's grown, right? It's evolved.
Yeah.
So we can't keep calling ourselves CRM when we do. That's just a tiny piece of what we do now, and what the vision of the future for Glass Hive is going to be. So we're going to now be Glass Hive. So still kind of in the same wheelhouse, right? Honey is essentially the sweet stuff that comes out of the Glass Hive, right? Everyone working hard to produce.
Yes. So let's back up. So one of the things that you said, because I actually think it's really important for anyone listening in. So you mentioned that you basically grew out of the brand. So you had a brand, It was called Honey CRM. For anyone who actually maybe is just hearing the name Honey CRM for the first time, really quickly bring everyone up to speed. What was that? And then talk us into, because I think brand evolution is a really cool topic. Talk to us about what that looks like and can look like, whether it's software or even services or a company. When you evolve, sometimes your brand has to morph and evolve with you. So take us through Honey, and then why is Glass Hive now the new brand? What's going to be new with the
Sure. That's a great question. So look, Honey CRM itself was a great tool, and it still is. All the same functionality, features, everything that's available is coming over. All it is that Honey CRM was a marketing and sales automation software tool. Very simply, it's kind of all the best stuff from HubSpot, Salesforce, your favorite email marketing engine, and other little pieces built into it, right? Where we built Honey CRM out of necessity. It was literally, we're managing partners that were our Try Digital Marketing, our previous brand, clients that we were doing all their marketing agency type stuff with, and we needed something to manage them within. Well, as we know, in our industry, MSPs basically run on 2 line of business applications. There's 3 if we want to call Tiger Paw, but really it's 2, and mostly it's 1. ConnectWise, a little bit of AutoTask, and then a sprinkle of other PSAs that are out there.
Sure.
Well, the 2 major tools, ConnectWise and AutoTask, are fantastic, amazing tools that are built to run a successful managed service provider and a practice I would suggest for all of you that are listening that don't have a PSA yet, absolutely look into one of these two tools because they are the best. Okay. I lean a little more towards ConnectWise right now, but they're both great. The one piece that they're missing, because it's not what they're built for, is the CRM, sales, and marketing management functionality. It's just kind of like a little afterthought that was built into these tools and is limiting to a lot of the partners you're managing. So after doing the literal gamut of going to every single email contact provider, like marketing engines out there, HubSpot, and everything else that exists, we just realized we had to build this ourselves. So we ended up building Honey CRM, which can essentially manage and automate all of the, or most of the functions of your marketing, already co-brands a lot of your stuff, and also manages the activities, accountability, and automates a lot of the sales follow-up functionality that we know a lot of you guys struggle with out there. So that's what Honey CRM was, right? It provided a two-way tool for the MSP to have clear visibility into how to make the sausage. Like, how do you actually do the work that no one wants to do, and what does it really take to get there, plus analytics and a lot of other things that are built into it. And then we had a portal built in for vendors, where vendors wanted to sponsor some of their top performers or select handpicked partners into the program. They have a place now where they can manage the MDF black hole that most of them unfortunately have to work with, which is where they're throwing MDF money at partners that have no idea what's happening with that MDF, if the things are being executed or things are being worked on. Honey gives visibility to everybody. It makes it really easy to justify more spend. So for those of you MSPs and bars that are really hitting it out of the park, showing proof of performance on steroids is really what Honey helps you do. So all that stuff said, Glass Hive was just doing a lot more. We realized from our partners, we just needed a little bit more. There, like, while project management, for example, was something that came up, sometimes in ConnectWise, you're managing these really intricate implementation projects and different things, which is a great tool for that. Now, what if you have to throw on a huge marketing event? That becomes a little bit more challenging with a tool like that. What if you want to throw on like some kind of really unique sales type incentive structure or program, or there's a lot of other little small projects that are really not technical projects that are more on the sales and marketing side of the house that we realized we need to build functionality into. So as this thing started evolving and growing into being a little bit more of a all-encompassing tool, and I wouldn't say all-encompassing, that's probably a bad phrase, but more of a tool that's, I think, a little bit more of things added to the Swiss Army knife, right? A little more, couple more tools added to the Swiss Army knife there. It just, CRM was limiting. And then now we were constantly dealing with the first question we would get is, I already have a CRM. We're like, well, but we do way more than that. So to avoid all that, Glass Hive became the new brand and kind of what we're leaning into moving forward.
Now, where did that come from? So obviously in any rebranding or branding session, everyone has the things that they like to do. One of the things I tell anyone to do when they're rebranding is you go through the process of understanding how the brand is going to reflect what you're trying to accomplish. So yours, you wanted it to be a variation of like bees, honey, hive, right? Like they are married, they're cousins, right? They're brand cousins in some way. There's an evolution of the story. But what went into creating the new brand name?
There's a lot. I tell people all the time, the biggest thing that goes into making any kind of brand, right, is three things: people, passion, culture. All that stuff stayed the same. So transitioning from the brand was a little bit easier for us because we already knew who we were. We knew our story. We knew who our market is, who we're marketing to, and what we're trying to accomplish. So that's the hard part when creating a brand, conversation comes up. The part that was a little easier for us was like, well, we're doing more than just producing the honey now. So what does that look like? And then we have an amazing team at Honey. Our director of art, our creative directors. I mean, everybody on the team is top notch. And I think my brother was the first one that actually came up with this idea, though, where he was just like, man, what if we can kind of see through the hive? And then our guys just ran with it, and it turned into Glass Hive. And it's basically what it is. It gives you a window into all the work and the different teams and different pieces that it takes to make the revenue, the honey, right, for your company and make the stuff work. So that's essentially what it's turning into now, is more of a full suite of automation that provides everything as it relates to sales, marketing, and marketing operations, sales operations. All that stuff is going to be all encompassing Hive that's producing revenue for you guys. So this gives you clear visibility into all of that stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. And I think one of the things I think is so incredibly important about brand in general is the story that goes around it. So anyone who's watching, you just saw, Rafael sharing the story of what made the brand. And I'm sure it's going to be harder to forget now too, because there is this story that makes you visualize it. And you're thinking about a hive and you're thinking about glass and seeing through and this visibility. And it's really, really neat to attach that brand story and it makes your brand come alive. And it's one of those things, at the end of the day, a brand in general, for anyone who's rebranding or maybe even looking at your brand as it stands today, it's really just a promise of something that you're going to deliver on. So that's what a brand is. A brand is saying, look, this company is going to do X, and delivering on that promise is what makes a good brand. And then delivering every time consistently on that promise is what makes a great brand. So it's important to make sure that when you're coming up with these stories, when you're coming up with your brand, when you're rebranding, that you're really thinking about all this. And that too, Rafael just mentioned the team. Not only does your brand story have to be great, and then everything behind that, right? Your logos, the promises you're making, are you delivering, your service levels, all of that to make a great brand, but the people supporting it are huge too, because they've got to be a direct reflection of it. So you saying everyone's top notch on the team, that will come across in your brand reputation, because that's what people are delivering on. So I think that's awesome.
To that point, Andrew, I would say for those of you guys that are out there, and you look up, let's just say Yelp reviews, right? Mm-hmm. If you're on Yelp and you're looking up Yelp reviews, or you're looking up on Google reviews for a service-based company, if you look, all of the negative and positive reviews, for the most part, have very little to do with the company itself, but usually a person in the company.
Yep.
Susie at the so-and-so was amazing. Hey, Tim at blank and blank was fantastic. Hey, Joey at so-and-so was a total jerk, right? So like, your people essentially are what your brand, they're the ones who are dealing 100%. With your clients, with outsourcing. They are a reflection of your passion, of your culture, of who are you working with, yes. Right? My grandma has a phrase in Spanish that she always says is, dime con quién andas y te digo quién eres. And it basically is like, tell me who you're hanging out with and I'll tell you who you are, right?
Oh, so I love
it's
that.
Kind of like, it's, and that's your company, right? Yep. If you have cool people in your company, or you have jerks in your company, look, it's a reflection of you at the end of the day. Absolutely. So that's usually what people are interacting with. So all that stuff stays the same. I would say homework for all of you guys that are out there thinking about rebranding and thinking about how to, what should I do with my brand? I mean, you got to ask yourself some real deep questions, right? You got to know who you are. Like, you have to, and this is a thing you talked about earlier, we kind of evolved. Who you are today might not be who you were 10, 20 years ago when you first started the company. So think about, is your brand still in alignment with the people, passion, cultures, the vision of who you are today and who you're going to be tomorrow, right? Absolutely. So all of those things need to be in line, and there's work that can be done, but it really does take knowing yourself and having an honest conversation with yourselves and being okay with saying we're not the same anymore.
Absolutely. And maybe the team, maybe the brand itself maybe isn't the only thing that you've grown out of. A lot of times too, back to the, your example of the people in the business, maybe there are people in the business that are no longer a good reflection of who the business is today. And so I always like to share, at least at a minimum on an annual basis, do a quick reflection, introspectively, take a look at the brand, take a look at the people in the brand, take a look at what you're offering, see if your solutions match up with the needs of the market, see if your brand is in alignment with what people think about you, see, because that alignment of what you think about yourself as a brand in a company and what other people think about you as a brand in a company, if you're an amazing brand, hopefully they're equal to each other. If you're not, oftentimes you can think that you're one way or think that you're perceived one way in the market. And that shows up typically in revenue and reputation, right? Like the R's.
Absolutely.
And so you have to know how people think and feel about you. And if you're not hitting those goals or hitting those growth targets that you have set for yourself, sometimes it backs up to brand and the brand creation, the brand awareness, all of that to get where you're trying to go. So what are some quick fire things that people can do to reevaluate their brand? And if they are reevaluating their brand, how do they go about, changing things up a little bit?
Like I would say there's a ton of books out there on the topic, right? There's a ton of speakers and different things. I mean, there's brand information out there, plenty to find.
Oh, great.
I would say the one kind of thing that we do here internally whenever I'm coming up with a new brand with anybody is I put them to the story arc. If I'm going to make a movie about your company, right? There's typically 5 questions that you want to ask, or it happens in a movie, right? So like, why are we doing this, right? What is, we could be selling ice cream. Why are you selling managed services, right? There's a lot of other stuff to sell, a lot of other services. Why are you doing this? That's the first question. Second question should be is what is the goal? Are you just aimlessly driving around the road, or you have like a destination you're trying to hit, right? So once you know the destination and the goal, right? So the next thing you want to find out are what is the monster that you're what are the things that could, the big kind of, and I would say internal and external, that would prevent you from accomplishing that big goal. And then write this all out as you guys are doing this, right? This is kind of like, if you're looking at it, this is the peak of the arc, right? And then after that, the downfall, you've defeated that monster, right? Kind of, what did you learn? So how did you defeat that monster? What did you learn? What were the things that had to happen for it to take place? And, you know, the changes you had to make and all that. Then the last question you want to ask yourself, and this is kind of like, you got to think in the movie, credits are about to roll, the hero's walking off into the sunset kind of a thing. What is the legacy going to be all about? What is the legacy of your company? What's your personal legacy going to be about? Because I had a conversation actually with Gary Vee at the IT Build It Live event, the IT by Design, their event last week. And he was talking very heavily about this. Is your personal brand as the CEO, the visionary, the sales leader, whatever the face, if you're the face of the company, you got to think sometimes it's not the CEO. It's whoever your clients recognize as the person associated with that brand. You got to think that your legacy, that person, whoever that is, most of the time it's the owner or the sales leader. That person's legacy is also going to be a reflection of the company's legacy. But the legacy question is really important, because you should ask yourself, you kind of have to think about, how do you want people to remember you? How do you want your coworkers to remember you? How do you want the people that you interact with to remember you? And once you understand all that, and once you also kind of think about, like, if it was 300 years in the future, right? What was the footprint that your company left behind? And all those questions lead into figuring out who you are. And once you know who you are, you can build a theme around that. So you're going to notice a couple of things repeating as you're like going through this kind of self-questionnaire and this kind of self-reflection process. And all I would do, it was the easiest thing in the world. After I'm collecting all this information, I would literally go through and circle the commonalities and things they would say over and over and over again. And boom, we have a theme. That theme doesn't have to be super overt, by the way, too, where it's not like super cheesy in your face every single time. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Like, we had a theme that was engineering excellence, right? That was one of our partners' themes, because that was a big, excellence was like a huge thing for them. It's like, they were all about being excellent at everything you do. Okay. Now, we could have beat that theme to death, right? We could have put it like on their taglines. It could have been all over their stuff. It could have been everything, but that's not also really who the culture was. They weren't like a very engineering type group. They were a little bit more loose and casual, but it still is who they are. The theme of who you create and who your brand is doesn't necessarily have to be super. It could be subtle. It could be little things that are in there, but it still rings true to who you are, right? So there's a lot that goes into making a brand, but the biggest thing and the hardest thing, frankly, is figuring out who you are. Not so much who do you want your clients to perceive you as. The authenticity behind understanding who you are, you can't fake that. Because a lot of guys also, the mistake I see people make is they try to fake it. You try to like, oh, you know what? My doctor clients really want me to be like this, or my lawyer clients really expect me to be this. And you can fake it. It's like holding a weight. You can do it for a little while, but eventually you're going to get tired. And you're going to see brand inconsistencies. And that stuff is detrimental and almost makes you take 3 steps back in your brand as opposed to taking steps forward. So don't think about who your prospects want you to be. Think about who you really are and lean into that.
Definitely. And it's like life too. Business brands are no different than personal brands. And I think the word brand can be very overused. It's genuinely who you are as a person. If you, that's where reputation comes from, right? Someone being whoever they are, hopefully authentically, after time, right? Time has to go by for that reputation to be made. That's what you can expect from that person, right? That's who they are authentically. And that's what you want to hopefully expect. If they're a great friend, you're going to expect them to be a great friend. If it's a great service in the business, you're going to come to expect that it's great service that you're going to receive in that business. If it's great quality clothing from that brand that you love to buy from, or that watch that brand you just love, you expect those things because they've developed that reputation and that's who they authentically are, and they create great products and services. So I completely agree with everything you said. And I think even to any partners or vendors out there that you're really trying to think through brand, I think that's great advice. Just be authentic, but maybe sometimes too, it takes a second to sit down and think about yourself for a second and say, who are we authentically as a business? Like who are we today? Maybe it is different. And then start to map that out as you're mentioning. And as you map out that storyline and that narrative about just who you are, it's a little bit therapeutic, right? Once you start to map that out, that's your story. And then you just need to tell that story. So this is where sales and marketing comes in, right? So taking that brand or that story of whoever you are, and I say it's show and tell. Like when you're little, everyone goes and sits in the kindergarten group and you have like your little toy, you show it and you tell about it. Branding is the exact same thing. You show people, right, on your websites, on your digital pieces, all over the place. You show people on the trade show's floor. You show them who you are, and then you also tell them who you are, right? So you show them through actions and service and all that. And then you tell your story. You tell it in as many places and as often as you possibly can. And that's sales and marketing. And then once you get what you hopefully want, someone buys into your brand, then you deliver. And if you deliver time and time again, then you become, you get raving fans who will then bring in other clients to you. And it's just this process that builds this huge snowball that builds on itself. And that's brand excellence, right? So I love branding. I think we both do. We could probably talk about it for hours.
Yes.
But anything, as we're leaving everyone, anything you want to leave everyone with when it comes to brand, and if this is a great topic, we'll come up with more sessions. Don't worry. Anything you want to leave everyone with?
Yes, I would say I'll give you guys two things. Okay, one, if you and I would say this: you have to really again think about who you are. Social media is a big thing. LinkedIn, you don't have to be on Facebook and Twitter and all that crap. I don't think anybody cares from an MSP service provider perspective. But LinkedIn, people do follow you on there. Get a chance to reflect your company as much as possible out there. You're about us on your website, by the way. Okay, I'll leave you guys with three things. Okay. Now it just came up. So all this stuff said, let's start with the website, which is the biggest one. There are people on this listening to this webinar right now, and you know who you are. I'm not going to call out names, but you know who you are, whoever you are that's listening to this, who has been saying, I need to change my website for years now. It is 2021 and a half, almost 2022. If you are still with some busted site out there and you are a technology provider telling people they need to use technology strategically, you are killing your own credibility right off the bat. 100%. Because the number one way that people see your first interaction, no matter, you can tell the story 100 times. What's the first thing? The first thing people are going to do when they finish talking to you is going to go to your site. And if your site sucks, you have nobody to blame but yourself. Mm-hmm. Right. And so you got to think you just ruined a lot of, or it's going to be a lot harder to get that sale now when you're a technology provider and you're not leveraging technology strategically, which is within your site. And there's no excuse anymore. There's Marketopia. There's a lot of other companies that are out there. I don't want to name any names, even free ones, guys, that are out there that you guys can go and at something is better than nothing. You cannot have, if you have some crappy ass server still on your homepage of your site, think about what you're doing. Is that really who you are? Are you this random server? I think there's a little bit more to you than that. So that's number one. Number two, which leads me right into that, the two most important tools in sales are credibility and curiosity. You have to understand how to leverage both effectively. Credibility starts with being authentic. You can tell when people are full of crap, and that immediately lends into your credibility because everything else you tell me now, I'm going to question. You're going to question it. But if I get off the bat, I feel who you are, and you build credibility slowly over time. Again, we talked about this. You can say, we provide the best service in the world. Cool, dude. Everyone says that. How do I know for sure, right? You do that through education, through teaching people, showing people that you really know what you're talking about. I'm
like a chef nerd, okay? So I follow like celebrity chefs. I'm a dork like that. And if you look, I don't have to go to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant to know that he knows what he's talking about when he's coming to food, because he shows it. Mm-hmm. He shows you what he's doing. There's no secret. The guy's clearly knows what he's doing, right? And the same kind of thing can be applied to managed services. You can showcase a lot of things you do through education, making technical stuff that's hard to understand for your end user clients and your prospects really easy to understand.
Yeah.
Make it simple for them. You build credibility because now they don't get it, but they know that you get it and you seem like a trustable person. And now the next part, I kind of like you, right? So now I like you mixed in with, and I connect with your culture and your brand, your personality, and you know what you're talking about? You're credible. Mm-hmm. The next piece is curiosity. How do you get people to take that next little step with you along the way? Some of you guys out there are murdering your clients with information. People are busy, right? Give them a little bit. Just all you need is a little sprinkle. Hey, let's have another conversation and we'll keep moving this thing along and to take the next step. Once you understand how to accomplish those two things, you're going to go very, very far. And I would say the third thing, guys, is again, think about your colors. My goodness. If I see another blue and white or red and white or orange and white, or a green starting to creep in there now too. There is an entire plethora of colors to choose from, folks. Think about that. I'm just going to leave you with that one alone. Okay. Just this times have moved on. Your color and your brand about who you reflect and even your logo, those kind of things. Think about all that stuff, guys, because those are all going to, again, go right back to the original thing we talked about, which is credibility and curiosity. The more credible you are, the cooler your stuff looks. Your technology company, you should look like you just jumped out of a spaceship from the future and are telling people about like, hey, I know how this movie ends. Let me show you how all this stuff works. Because if you need to look cool, I mean, that's just the unfortunate reality of the world we live in today. Super boring, stuffy brands, especially when it comes to technology, are just not going to cut it anymore.
I love those. And I think that everyone watching would definitely, I think any of that resonates with just thinking about their own. Even if you think you have a great brand, oftentimes it's still an opportunity to look back, go to your own website with fresh eyes. I always share with partners, many partners, they don't know the last time they went to their own website. And you've got to go back and see and look. I always say, if you were a prospect, would you be a client of yours? And I think that's a really, that's a really convicting thing to think about, because often you don't go back and think like, gosh, what's my client experience like? To be a client of my brand, what does that feel like? What information are they getting? Be a seed list on your own drip campaigns and go back to your own website, fill out a form, see what that experience feels like, and just make sure it feels, back to what Rafael and I were talking about before, on brand with you, how you want to come across and you want everyone to feel while they're engaging with you. So I love it. We're definitely going to have to do some more brand chats because we could absolutely see this conversation, but it has been an absolute pleasure. I think you gave a lot of great homework. We expect everyone to do it. And I look forward to catching up again.
Absolutely, Andrew. Thank you so much. And thank you guys all for listening. If you have any more questions or you want to shoot any information my way, it's Rafael, Rafael, almost like the Ninja Turtle, at glasshive.com. So if you guys have any questions and you want to just, reach out, man, I help people all the time. The hard part isn't in the advice. The hard part is actually in doing it. So if you guys need help, feel free to shoot me any questions you guys have. I'm happy to help you guys out.
Absolutely. Thanks again.